John, can I ask one more question now?
Yes, my question is that we know the arising of the kilesa is just arising and falling, and there's no ownership of that. But how come that when it comes to other people, the kilesa, we tend to react very strongly against it compared with our own kilesa? Why is that?
You said practice is all about learning from your experience, and there's no need to build your kilesas or other people's up into a big thing or react strongly. You just learn. If you see other people's kilesas, just see it as something normal, or they're still caught into their kilesas. Just reflect like that and keep your mind just normal. Paul, continue to answer the question just now. That we should remember the Buddha's teaching that he gave to the lady Visakha, that in our practice we should try not to take out the fire from our house and take it outside of our house, meaning the kilesas, the suffering we have in our minds, not to display it out in our external actions and speech. And not to bring the fire from outside our house into our house, meaning the kilesas of others, not to let them come in and cause us suffering and trouble in our own minds. Because these things we call kilesas, mental defilements, their nature is unwholesome. We call it akusala. And that is that by their very nature they're ugly, unattractive qualities of mind. And they're the way that leads to degeneration, to suffering. So the more we contemplate this, the more we get to know ourselves, get to know our minds, the more that those qualities will become apparent. We'll see, these unwholesome mind states, they're unattractive, they're ugly, they're not for our benefit in any way, so we'll want to let go of them, get rid of them. And in the course of the practice, you could say it's a bit like being on a battlefield, because constantly we are having experiences that stimulate these unwholesome mind states. They'll be coming up because of what we hear, what we see, what we feel. They'll be stimulated, and sometimes we are able to recognize them and let go of them, abandon them. Sometimes not. Sometimes they overcome our minds and we have to give in to them or lose the battle temporarily. Sometimes in the practice we have to use skillful means, ubayas, as things come up, which you won't find them in the books or in the Dhamma teachings you've heard. It will be things you have to deal with in the present moment, whatever's arising. You have to find your own skillful means to deal with them and find ways to let them go. But you also have to know how to live with yourself when your mind isn't peaceful sometimes. You have to be able to see, well, it's normal in the course of practice. There will be times when it goes well and you feel peaceful and content. There'll be other times when you're still unable to succeed in your practice and you'll have disturbances and suffering of different kinds. So see that and accept it, that it's going to be like that, so you can deal with it and see it as a normal part of practice to have some success, some failure. Practice involves learning how to deal with failure just as much as how to deal with success in a wise way. Because we're on a battleground, we have to know how to lose sometimes. There's other dangers that we face that no one can avoid. However well they practice, there's other things we have to learn how to deal with, say old age, sickness, death. Nobody can avoid those. Nobody can avoid having aches and pains. On the mental level, we have to learn how to deal with mental pain or agitation, what we call the 5 hindrances, the different kinds of disturbances that come up in the mind, the worry, the doubt, anger, agitation, irritation, all these things. We have to learn how to contemplate this and see these things as they are. For old age and sickness, we have to see this is the ordinary way of the body. There's no way around it. It has to go that way. Every single part of this body gradually degenerates with age. Every internal organ, every aspect of it. Usually we have attachment to this body and every part of it. We say this is mine. So when things do start to degenerate, go wrong, then we start to suffer because we haven't seen through that attachment yet. When our eyes go, we start to suffer because our seeing isn't so good. When our ears go, we can't hear. If we see kilesas in others, see other people behaving in unwholesome ways, unskillful ways, a good way to practice is to turn around and reflect, and do I still have these same conditions in my mind, in my practice? It's a bit like food. If you have bad food and you go and give it to others, then that's not good, is it? They're going to suffer. So if we see other people with their kilesas and their unwholesome ways, and then we criticise them, and we talk about it, criticise them, look down on them, that won't be good. It will come back to us. It will bring us suffering in the end. You can compare things a bit like to when we look at the sea, the ocean. The ocean is full of water, salty water, and it has a natural process of cleansing that takes place in all the water. Any rubbish or impurities, pollution and so on that goes into the sea, then gradually over time it will cleanse it. The biggest pieces of rubbish, the pieces you can see, gradually it sends it back to the shore and it gets washed up on the shore. The other more subtle kinds of pollution gradually get filtered and mixed in with the seawater and the salt, and then blend into the point where it disappears. Part of this is through the movement of the waves on the surface, aerating the water. The waves on the surface of the ocean, they're moving all the time. In our minds we have movement going on all the time as well. It's what we call sankhara, mental conditions or mental proliferation. So we should be able to see that this is actually normal for the mind to have all this movement going on. But the quality of this movement is that it's impermanent, it's expressing impermanence. In our society we have all kinds of ceremonies in Buddhist temples, when we have funerals, we have evening chanting and so on, where we chant many chants just to remind us of this. We chant anicca vata sankhara. All conditions are impermanent. This is something we have to reflect on, to see, where there is good, then it can change, there'll be bad. Where there's gain, then there can be loss. Where there's happiness, it can change to sadness. Where there's criticism, it can change to praise, or praise can change to criticism. When we contemplate like this with wisdom, then we will understand that these changes are normal, and we'll be able to see them just like the waves on the ocean. It's just something normal in nature, just part of reality, or what we say satcha dhamma, the true way of reality. So practice involves learning how to deal skillfully with good moods and bad moods. We have to relate to these things in a correct way, just to see these are just conditions of the mind. This is spiritual maturity, where we can contemplate these things. It's different from, say, like a child who just gets caught into their moods and pushed around by them, following them. For someone who's spiritually mature, then they can see them as they are, and they know, oh, these are just ordinary, it's just the way it is, the way things are.
Sometimes we meditate for such many years, and yet we don't seem to see the amount of kilesa reduced, Sometimes we think they are, sometimes they are still there. Is there something wrong with the practice somewhere?
Really, when we start describing our practice and looking at things saying, I have kilesas, we're already going wrong right from the beginning, using this approach, this way of looking at things. The Buddha wanted us to observe conditions, to see their true nature, to see kilesas as they are. What are they? What's their nature? We can look at them and see that they are things, qualities that bring us harm, bring suffering. When we act through kilesa, then the society around us will look down on us. They'll criticize that behavior. So we develop awareness to see them as they are, but to see them that they are just ordinary things that happen in nature. When we can see that they're just normal in this way, we won't react with aversion to them. You could say it's just like when you see a cloudy sky with clouds and mist, you can say, oh, the sky is not clear, the light is not good. When those clouds pass away, you can say, oh, now the sky is clear and there's good light. It's as simple as that. When we look at the mind with defilements, they're there or they're not there. If you contemplate, then you can see the conditions of the mind in this way. The Buddha said to monks that they should practice the brahmacharya, the holy life, for developing purity, to bring it to perfection, bring their minds to perfection. So we practice, but we have to practice with the conditions that are coming up. If other people criticize us, then we have to learn how to take that and contemplate it, not to react with aversion, say. We have to learn how to keep practicing whatever the conditions are that arise. Say for a monk ordains and wears these robes for life, as long as they're a monk. It means we have to learn how to keep practicing whatever comes up. We develop these qualities of a practitioner, one who's practicing. And there's various guidelines that the Buddha gave us for what is correct practice. Firstly, one has to have faith. One has to have confidence in the teachings. Confidence in the ability, the potential of human beings to change themselves, change their minds and transcend suffering. But that confidence, that faith has to be backed by wisdom. Jnana sampayutta. There has to be a wisdom that comes from reasoned reflection, backing the belief in the effectiveness of Dhamma practice. All Dhammas arise from a cause, the Buddha said. And the Buddha said what that cause was, and he said all Dhammas pass away. And when the cause passes away, it changes, then those Dhammas pass away. If we can see it like this, then it will bring up a sense of care and circumspection in our minds. And we'll also develop a sense of shame and an awareness of the consequences of our actions. As if we have a sense of an awareness that unwholesome actions bring suffering. If we are aware of that, we see that, it will naturally bring up a sense of shame in the mind, wanting to steer away from unwholesome things. They say one who has shame, a sense of shame, is complete in their practice of sila. And they have this fear of the consequences, the beneficial, the harmful consequences of unwholesome actions. So one needs sila, one needs sattva, faith, one needs sila. And then one has to have faith that is placed in the right direction, not to get caught into unwise, wrong views. They're not to get caught into beliefs in unwholesome things. The Buddha didn't want us to attach to things that block our spiritual development. say, to just put all our faith and belief into magic charms, amulets, potions, black magic, all these kind of things, different rituals and so on. We shouldn't attach to foolish beliefs about places, about special times, all these different kinds of things that people get caught into. So in terms of times, in the old days in practice in Thailand, they did things in a very practical way. They said if you're ready to do something, you do it. They're like in the old days when you built a house in the village. The one who wanted to build the house, they prepared all the materials, prepared the place for building the house, got it all ready. And then when there was a day when everyone in the village was free, they'd all come together and straight away they'd build the house. And that was the right time to do it because everyone was ready. And because everyone helped in that way, you could often be able to build one whole house in one day because everyone was helping. By the evening you'd have pretty much a house. It might not be completely finished, but it'd be a house with a roof that you could use. They'd say that's what made it auspicious, because everyone came together and completed the job together. If it was that didn't happen, if people weren't ready, they didn't come together, then you'd say it was inauspicious. The Buddha also gave us many teachings on the correct way to make merit, to make wholesome karma. He told us to develop generosity, self-sacrifice, to develop kindness and compassion. In Thailand, traditional rural Thailand anyway, they begin their day very early, maybe 4 a.m. People get up to start cooking food. And then at dawn, when the monks come out, they offer food on Bindabata. They usually don't offer a lot, just a small amount, but it's symbolic. It's enough to develop this practice of generosity, and it provides a connection between the Sangha and the laity. In the old days in the villages in Thailand, if someone, an elder person in the community, became ill or weak and was laid up in bed at home, then every evening after work pretty much the whole village would come round to visit them. They'd sit there, visit the person, check up on how they were, quietly discuss any preparations for what should be done when this person dies, prepare the funeral and any other business. All of that came from a sense of kindness, generosity and concern for the harmony of the village. That kind of behaviour develops mutual respect between people. So all of these kinds of practice, dana, respect, sila, these all support the arising of wholesome mind states and good karma. And also the practice of bhavana, mental development. We have to know how to develop peace of mind. When we have peace of mind, then we can develop wisdom from this. We can see things clearly. When we know how to meditate and develop peace of mind, and say in the evening you sit down after a day's work, any problems you have that are coming up in work or the family, you'll be able to solve them because you'll use that peace of mind as a background for your reflection. This peace of mind helps us to know the right way to proceed in our lives, the way to make decisions, to do things, the way to do things without the mental defilements bothering us. So these are some of the ways that the Buddha said that these are the correct ways for humans to live and practice in their lives. I'll leave them for you to consider.